Good evening, everyone. I am Janvi, and I welcome you all on behalf of Pragnya Group of IAS institutions. I hope everyone is safe and healthy. So, today we have gathered up here to discuss the success strategy for prelims, mains, and interview rounds of the prestigious UPSC examination. So, we have with us the students who have just started off with their preparation for UPSC and also the students who have attempted the mains exam. Now, I would wholeheartedly like to welcome the speaker of the evening, Mr. Shubham Gupta. With an All India rank 6, he qualified the prestigious UPSC examination. He is currently working as the Assistant Collector at Itapalli and Project Officer ITDP at Bhamragarh, Gadchiroli, Maharashtra. We all know how many hardships you had to face throughout your journey to get here, sir. We would like to know more about your preparation strategies and how you kept yourself motivated throughout the journey.
Thank you so much, Janvi, for the generous introduction. Um, Let me just start with some opening remarks, and then I would probably prefer to answer some of the questions if there are any. Uh, about the UPSC exam, all of us know that there are 3 stages to the exam. It's a year-long process. We start with prelims, we go on to mains, and then the interview process. I generally believe that it is much better if we try to keep the preparation organic. Uh, what I mean to say by that is it is always preferable that you start your reading your syllabus through NCRTs and the newspaper, rather than focusing too much on the reference books that that are generally advised by a lot of coaching institutions and your colleagues in general, because everybody is going to a different place, they get to know different names of books, and then you end up reading the same thing multiple times in different reference books, right? So instead of wasting time or duplicating your efforts, it is always better that you try to focus more on revision. Always quality is better than quantity. That is what I have always felt when I went through my preparation journey for almost 4 years. So I would also advise all of you to probably adhere to the same, because that will help you kind of be more confident about your whole preparation strategy. Because once you revise the same thing multiple times, because of course, because the syllabus is so huge, revision is of utmost importance, and that gives you the time to kind of go through whatever you have already studied and be confident about it. So that is one remark which I wanted to do, and that goes for all the 3 stages of the exam: prelims, mains, and interview. So that is one remark which I wanted to kind of mention here. Secondly, there is no alternative to newspaper reading. I keep hearing from a lot of aspirants and students nowadays that can we just skip the newspaper reading and can we just focus on the monthly compilations which are being released by a lot of coaching institutes? No, you cannot. The reason is very simple, that the material which is available in terms of monthly newspaper, it is only it does not help you to exercise your brain. Reading the newspaper gives you that kind of ability to interpret what is happening around you, kind of chronologically link it to a certain extent, and then try to understand what exactly is happening around you, and then probably produce it in a better way in the paper whenever and if it is asked by the examiner. So that capability needs to develop. You need that the newspaper reading helps you to kind of broaden your horizon in terms of the developments around the world also. So I think it is extremely important that you read the newspaper every single day, right from day 1 of your preparation to the day you clear, you give your interview, and then probably beyond that also. And you read it well. I generally say that if you're not spending about 2 hours in reading the newspaper every single day, then you're probably not reading it well enough. And that is precisely why I always suggest that spending 2 hours on the newspaper is time well utilized, not time wasted. Even if you're not able to complete your syllabus, but you have gone through the newspaper really, really well, then you're in good hands to kind of deal with the exam at all stages. So that is number 2. And one last thing I would like to mention is it's actually a bit philosophical, but nonetheless, it is extremely important that you treat UPSC civil services just like an exam and not something which will determine whether you succeed in life or not. I know this may sound a bit philosophical, but the idea is very simple, that either way, if you clear the exam or not, you ultimately gain those capabilities giving the UPSC exam, which will help you succeed in life and do something worthwhile. There are a lot of you don't realize this when you're giving the exam, but trust me, I'm sitting on the other way. I've cleared the exam and I've seen other people working. Probably there are 1,000 other ways of achieving the same thing, trying to help the same people, achieving that satisfaction in life. And even if you're not able to clear the exam, those options are always available to you. Even if you clear the exam, you should always think of the end goal, in life, rather than just thinking about, I want to clear this exam, I want to become this officer, I want that car, that office. You should always think of what exactly you want to do, and that will help you succeed in life and be happy and be satisfied. That is extremely that is something which I find missing, unfortunately, in my own batchmates at times, in a lot of officers which I meet, because they find it really difficult to kind of go through that preparation. I mean, go beyond that stage of just finding themselves in the academy after clearing the exam and trying to make it well enough for them in the field. Not all, a very few, some of them, but yeah. So that is something which will help you serve well when you go to the field, if you start thinking of life beyond just clearing the exam. So those are my opening remarks. And Janvi, I'm open for questions, if from the audience or from you.
Okay, sir. So what was the biggest challenge that you faced during your preparation for UPSC?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you, Janvi.
I hope I am
Yeah.
audible now. Okay. So I'm asking, what was the biggest challenge that you faced during your preparation for UPSC?
So, Janvi, I prepared for UPSC for almost 4 years. I've cleared twice, but I think the biggest uh, challenge has to be keeping your own sanity when you're preparing for the exam, because I don't think after the first stage, after the first attempt in the exam, you find the syllabus very challenging. Of course, it is very lengthy, it is very cumbersome. But you get hold of the syllabus once you have attempted the exam once and you have attempted it well, you prepared well. But the real challenge comes when you have to keep yourself sane in this particular exam, which is extremely, extremely unpredictable. No matter how hard you work, you may always find yourself on the side which you don't want to see yourself in. So, and that has happened with me almost. Happened with me 2 times, and one time when I could not. Qualify for the service which I wanted to. So 3 times in this exam, I have seen myself in a place where I didn't want to. And unfortunately, that is where you really need to keep your patience, and you really need the support of all your loved ones, because uh, that is what is really challenging, to have that kind of mental stability. And this particular exam really, it is always rightly said that this exam is not just about clearing UPSC, but it always trains you for life. It always trains you for handling the pressure, and it always trains you for keeping yourself sane in challenging situations. So that is precisely what is difficult in the preparation of the exam also.
Okay, so during the journey, students also get to face mental breakdowns, and sometimes their patience also shatters. So how do they just keep it intact all the time?
I think I generally advise 2 things for students in such stages. One is always, this is because a lot of people, a lot of aspirants find it, think that you have to cut off social media, you have to cut off connect with all your friends, you shouldn't speak to for a lot of time on the phone. All these things are told to every aspirant, whenever, whether by coaching institutes or by your colleagues or even by your family at times. But the idea is that it is extremely important for you to be connected and to your family, to your friends, and kind of feel yourself at home and not feel completely isolated, because that will pressurize you too much, if at all you're not able to clear the exam. So it is extremely important. I'm not saying that you should use social media a lot, but the idea is that whatever gives you happiness, whatever gives you a little whatever makes you a bit calm, that is something which will really help you out. Just go out, take a stroll, just go out, speak to your friends for 15 minutes, drink a cup of tea or coffee. That things like that really help you deal with the pressure of the exam, and also the people around you. And another thing which really helped me out during my preparation stage was being involved in something extracurricular, apart from just reading the books all the time. And that's something in my case was playing tennis, because I when I was in the last stage of the exam, I used to play tennis for almost every single day for about an hour or so. And that really helped me because you kind of freshen up, and then whenever you are studying, you can really grasp whatever you're reading in lesser time as compared to when your mind is really tired from reading the books all the time. It is not the right thing to feel guilty if you have not spent 17-18 hours on the books while preparing for UPSC. It doesn't happen that way. It takes different time for different people. It takes a different strategy for different people. So you have to understand that it's a very unique preparation strategy for every individual, and that is how it is supposed to be. But doing all those things, being connected, and kind of being involved in something extracurricular will really help you out in keeping yourself mentally alive.
Okay, sir. So now could you please suggest some things for the UPSC aspirants for time management?
Time management, again, like I said, I don't believe in a specific number of hours that you have to really spend on each and every subject.
కావాలంటే ఎవరు ఇక్కడ తేడానికి ఎవరైనా ఉంటారా?
This strategy, I mean, apply this strategy of kind of sitting down and seeing how many, what is the kind of syllabus that I have to cover in how many days or months, and then just bring it down to, let's say, I have about 3 months in preparation in giving the prelims. Then I will take the entire syllabus and divide it into two halves. What is the amount of syllabus that I have to complete in 45 days, and then again bring it down to 22 days, and then again bring it down to 7 days, 2 days, 3 days, and then that will tell me that how much syllabus I have to complete in one day. And if I'm able to complete that syllabus for one day in about 2 hours also, then I'm absolutely fine. I don't go beyond what I'm supposed to do in terms of syllabus. Of course, newspaper and practice of whatever answer writing and all that is different. But if you're able to cover your syllabus for a particular day, then you should feel very confident about being prepared enough, being prepared well enough to succeed in this exam, rather than worrying about the lack of time. And let me also tell you that you'll always feel that you're short of time while preparing for this exam, just because of the sheer quantum of uh, topics that you have to cover in preparation for this exam. But don't worry, because when you go through this preparation stage, when you start being a bit organic in your studies, when you stop referring to a lot of other books which you generally end up doing, you will find yourself very confident because you have gone through a couple of revisions of the entire syllabus. And once you sit in the exam, you tend to recall a lot more than while you are preparing for it, and you will always feel less confident when you are at home. But when you're sitting in the exam, you will recall much more than you think you can. So yeah.
Okay, sir. And how did you handle the social pressure around you while preparing for the exam?
I don't think there was much social pressure on me as such, and probably I don't think I felt the social pressure a lot during my preparation stage. In fact, during the fourth stage of the exam, I had not even informed anybody except my family that I am writing the exam. The idea was absolutely right, that I didn't want people to constantly keep on asking me क्या हुआ, कैसे तैयारी चल रही है, what is your preparation, and have you qualified prelims, mains, and all that. So I only told my friends once when I had gotten the final rank in the final list, and that's when they got to know. But social pressure is something which you will feel only if you want to. And the idea is very simple. The idea is to be involved with your family, be involved with your friends, so that they don't feel that it is something extremely out of the ordinary that you're trying to do in your life. And if you try to behave like a normal person, the pressure will also be less.
Okay, sir. And what do you think is most needed for UPSC aspirant?
What is most needed?
What is the most needed for a UPSC aspirant?
I still couldn't hear you, Janvi. I'm sorry.
I hope it's audible now.
Yeah.
Okay, so the question is that what do you think is the most needed thing for a UPSC aspirant?
I mean, I think the most needed thing, I don't know how to answer that question, but The most needed quality for a UPSC aspirant is patience. So if I don't know if you're asking the same question, but yeah, I think every aspirant needs to be extremely patient, and it really does not make difference at what stage you start preparing for the exam, how many attempts it takes you to clear the exam, at what age you qualify, and which service you qualify, at what rank you qualify. It doesn't really make a difference as long as you are clear in your head what you want to do exactly when you go to the field. And I think that is precisely what will help you kind of maintain that calm and composure when you are writing the exam and when you're preparing for it.
Okay, so and we all know that the journey has been hard for you. So what kept you going throughout the preparation phase?
As I told in my opening remarks, the thing which kept me going was something beyond clearing the exam. It was always what I exactly wanted to do once I become an officer. In fact, when I qualified for the Indian Audit and Account Service in my second attempt, the only reason I kept writing the exam was because not because I didn't find the Indian Audit and Account Service good enough, but because I realized that what I had always imagined myself to be doing when I started preparing was not possible being in was not possible for me to do if I had still stayed in the Audit and Account Service. Instead, I had to do something and find myself in one of the field jobs, which fortunately the IAS provides me to. And that is precisely what kept me going and, kind of pushed me to go that extra mile to kind of prepare for the exam and keep preparing for the exam and give those 4 attempts and ultimately be able to find my name in the list. And of course, my family was extremely supportive throughout this effort.
Okay, sir. So now we have some of the questions in the chat box. So the first question is that how many hours is said to be a quality study for UPSC?
I already answered that, Janvi, that I don't think there is any standard, there are any standard number of hours that you have to prepare. It's always about the syllabus. If you're able to complete your syllabus in 2 hours to 18 hours to 24 hours, it doesn't matter. It's always about how much you want to cover in a particular day. And if you're able to do that, you're absolutely fine. You do not have to worry about the number of hours that is being prescribed to you or that you feel that it has to be spent by you. So it has to be very clear about that.
Okay. Another question that we have in the chat box is that as prelims is in 3 months, so how to cover the current affairs in the remaining time?
So again, it will depend on what stage of the exam you are in. Generally, at this stage, you should have gone through one reading of the exam, one reading of the entire syllabus, and now you should be ready for answer writing practice. I mean, test paper practice and multiple revisions. So from this stage, I would generally stop preparing for the optional subject or for mains and start focusing completely on prelims examination. I would try to do at least 2 to 3 revisions of the entire syllabus. Keep reading the newspaper, keep making notes out of the newspaper. Do not stop reading the newspaper and making notes out of it till the last day of the prelims exam, because you never know. I have faced a situation when I had read a news item just a day before the prelims exam and the same question was asked in the paper. And fortunately, because I had read, I was able to answer that question well. And I'm sure all of you know that even one single question makes a lot of difference in clearing the exam. In fact, I'll tell you guys, in my second attempt, the cutoff was for my time was 116 and I had scored just 116.6, So even if I had gotten just one question wrong, I was off the list. And that is precisely how much a single question can make a difference in whether you make it or not. I generally feel that prelims is really the most difficult stage of the exam, just because it doesn't test your interpretation capabilities, but it tests your memorizing capabilities. But fortunately, I think UPSC is slowly moving to more towards a really understanding point of view, rather than how much you can by heart and from reading different facts and different schemes and all that. So that's a very positive step which UPSC has taken now, and that will really help you guys, if you have, again, like I said, if you've gone through the newspaper well, if you have gone through your notes well, if you have revised multiple times, you will be absolutely fine, and you should be able to kind of use your time well. And one last thing, in the last 3 months, I would generally advise that you should start these test papers. Any test paper is fine. I don't think any coaching difference is very special in terms of providing test papers. It is just that you need to get into that habit of giving that exam when you actually go for it. And you should give the exam just like you would have given had you been writing the UPSC prelims exam in the same environment. Just use 2 hours, use an OMR sheet, use a black balling pen and all that. So just provide yourself that environment which you would be put into by the examiner. And I would generally advise that you should practice as much as possible. Start with full subject tests, like give a geography test, then give a polity test, give a history test. And towards the end, towards the last 1.5 months of your preparation, you should start writing full subject tests and only full subject tests. It doesn't matter how much you score. It doesn't matter whether you know the questions. Don't try to by heart the questions from the test papers. It doesn't happen that way. No coaching can claim that 50 questions were asked from the test papers, because it doesn't happen that way. The questions surprisingly are always new, which nobody or mostly people have not thought of. So it is just for the practice and to tell you what strategy is unique to you, and how what will suit you when you start writing the exam, and what will make you succeed in this exam.
Okay,
Good evening, sir.
Sri Ranga, you can please type your question in the chat box and we'll take it up from there.
Sir, I have just started preparing. As I progress, I find there are so many inputs from people where I get confused. So how can I get the balance?
Right. So again, I would also request everybody to kind of write their questions in the chat box, if that's okay. And to answer your question, Sri Ranga, I've already answered this question, that you will always keep getting different advices about books and ways of preparing for this exam. But the idea is to kind of keep practicing enough. And once you practice enough, you will automatically realize that this particular strategy works for you, both in terms of syllabus management as well as exam management. And that is the only way to go about it. There is no standard answer which I can provide you, which will help you succeed, because I know that my strategy hasn't worked for a lot of people. And the same can be the case for you. It is always about finding your own unique strategy. And that will be the only thing which can help you kind of succeed in this exam.
Okay, so next question we have is that, is it a better choice to write multiple competitive exams along with UPSC preparation?
I don't know. I mean, it's generally not possible to prepare for another exam while you are dedicatedly preparing for UPSC, because you won't have enough time. I've already spoken that you will always find yourself to be short of time while preparing for this exam, especially when you're preparing well enough. So no, I don't think so. You should prepare for any other exam while you're writing this exam. But yes, if you feel that you're a bit out of luck in UPSC civil service exam, then you will find it surprisingly easy to kind of qualify in other exam, because UPSC is indeed one of the more difficult exams that you will find in the country. And writing any other exam after you find yourself a bit exhausted mentally, then I'm sure there's no harm in trying your hand at other exams. And in fact, a lot of people do that already. But I've not known anybody who starts preparing for multiple exams right from the beginning. It's only a decision which is taken after a couple of years.
Okay, sir. So one person has asked that how to control the mind from getting diverted, especially for the beginners.
So if you're serious enough, I'm sure your mind won't divert. And if you like preparing for UPSC, your mind won't divert. So, I mean, again, to be very honest, I don't know how to answer this question, but your concentration is something which has to be driven by you and your motivation, what you want to do and how you want to do. So there is no specific strategy which will help you to kind of keep yourself focused while preparing. It is just like giving a school examination. When you had to sit yourself down, make sure that you have to spend those many hours for preparation, finish the syllabus, and then prepare for the exam. So yeah, that is my answer there.
Excuse me, sir. Sir, I have one question.
Prabhas, please type down the question in the chat box. We'll take up from there.
Like, I want to say it right now. Like, how different is your best attempt versus the other attempts? Like, what areas did you focus extra at each?
Please write your question. Prabhas, please write your question in the chat box.
Yeah, sir.
Okay, until Prabhas types it down, the next question. Many a times we don't understand what to read from newspapers and how to make notes from them. So can you put some light on it?
Sure. So I think it is one of the very important questions in preparation strategy about the newspaper. So what I used to do was, of course, there are certain sections in the newspaper which you can completely avoid. Generally, sports used to be one section, but now I have heard that a lot of questions are being asked from newspapers, so might as well scan through that. But of course, you can completely skip through the skip the politics part of it. You don't need to know who, I mean, what kind of crimes have happened around you, and you don't need to know mostly about the political turn of events, unless you are extremely interested. I used to be. So that part can be left out. You have to focus really well on the editorial and opinion page of the newspaper. The advice is you should read the Hindu for prelims and mains, and you should probably switch to Indian Express for your interview exam. And how to prepare notes out of it is something which I have always, I mean, I've always found it silly uh, to kind of read the same topic twice and make notes twice for prelims and mains differently, because I don't think it makes any sense. So what I used to do is I used to do an integrated study. I used to prepare for prelims and mains at the same time. For prelims, I used to, of course, note down a lot of facts which are related to any particular topic. And for mains, I would generally note down the more understanding part of a particular topic. For prelims, I would note down as many facts as are available about a particular topic. For mains, what I would do is I would sort of read through the entire thing. After reading the newspaper, I would go to Google. I would search a lot of material which is available on that particular topic. Once I've exhausted my study, I would sort of make notes for the mains answer writing. And I used to call it the 5-point formula, that I should be able to note down the entire part which I have read in 5 points, and those 5 points should be sufficient for me, so that I can expand on them and write an answer which goes from 3 to 4 pages, because that is the maximum you have to write in the UPSC exam mains, right? So that used to be my strategy. And one last thing, when you're reading the newspaper, when you're trying to make notes out of it, one, you have to do your own research. There is no alternative to it. Don't depend on the monthly compilations completely. And two, you can always divide the newspaper into multiple sections. I used to divide it and make notes out of it so that it becomes easier for me to revise. Those categories can be who's who, India and the world, Indian government schemes, it can be anything. There is no standard format to it, but just divide the newspaper into categories, because that will help you once you start revising. And also for the mains exam, because there are certain topics which get covered in GS1, then GS2, GS3, and GS4. So that's how.
Okay, so we have a question that could you please strategy to clear the exam for engineering students, as well as how to choose the optional subject.
I didn't get the first part of the question, Janvi.
So it says that you could tell a strategy to clear the exam for engineering students.
Right. So I'm not an engineering student, so probably I'm the wrong person to be asked this question. But the strategy, I'm sure that with spending 4 years in preparing for the exam, there is no specific strategy. It's absolutely the same for any stream of student, any student. I mean, and how to. What was the second part?
How to choose the optional subject.
There are two factors which I think should be accounted for when you're trying to choose your optional subject. The first part is your interest and your interest alone. There is no point in, so for example, mathematics and anthropology in recent years have been the highest scoring subjects in UPSC mains. But there is no point in choosing mathematics if you don't like it, if you don't understand it, So even if you really enjoy reading a subject which is average scoring, you should always go for that, because you'll have to go through a lot of material, and if you don't enjoy reading a particular subject, it will make it extremely difficult for you to go through that go through that syllabus for that optional subject, and it's quite huge that way. So the first factor has to be your interest and your interest only. And the second factor, if there are two subjects in which you are indifferent, you like both the subjects equally, then you can always look at the past scoring pattern of UPSC and probably go for something which has been scoring decently. I mean, probably a little bit more than the other subject in recent years. So yeah, that's all.
Okay, sir. So there's a question that says, how different was your best attempt versus the other attempts, and what areas did you focus extra at each stage of preparation?
I don't think my preparation was any different in all the four stages of the exam. It was pretty much the same for all four. In fact, in my second and fourth attempt, when I got to attempt the mains exam, I scored just almost the same marks in both the mains exam. Just 2 marks difference was there. I had scored probably 2 marks more in the fourth attempt as compared to the second. The difference between my ranks was primarily because I was able to score 60 marks more in the interview stage, because I prepared really well in the fourth attempt for the interview rather than in the second. So in terms of preparation for the first two stages, I don't think there was anything different which I did. In the interview stage, yes, I did make some difference in my preparation stage, and that was precisely to prepare. In the second stage, I did not prepare for the interview at all. In the fourth, I did. That's all.
Okay, sir. So there's another question that says that, do we have to focus more on the NCRT or the reference books?
I've already answered NCRT.
So if I am attempting for 2022, then from which year I have to write current affairs?
1 year before that.
So another question that is there, that how many mock tests is ideal for prelims?
I gave about 32 in the last attempt. And the idea is not to overdo it. The idea is very simple, that about 16 or 17 of them were subject tests. So I gave about 2 to 3 tests of each subject. For example, 2 tests of geography, 3 of polity, and like that. And in the last 15 odd tests were full length tests. The idea was very simple, that I need to get myself into that frame of mind where I was able to attempt 100 questions in 2 hours and attempt them well. Sort of identify that unique strategy which worked for me, how many questions I should attempt, which subject I'm good at, which subject I should be a bit wary of when I'm trying to attempt the exam. So this is precisely how I identified the number of tests that I wanted to do. There is no standard number again. It always varies from one person to another. But again, if you're writing 2022 exam, I would suggest that you start writing your test papers immediately, because that will help you kind of understand where you need to work hard, a bit harder as compared to the other subjects.
Good evening, sir. Sir, as you mentioned about mocks, so if we are giving mock test and when we are finding some questions are there that are not there in our notes, neither in like whatever reading that we have done from our sources. So at that time, we feel we should increase the sources, right? So that gives us confusion. Like you have studied some notes and some books and some current affairs, but what you have revised is not there in mock. So how to overcome that? Like what should be done after this?
Stop evaluating your mock tests. That's all. It doesn't really matter. I mean, even in the final exam prelims, when you will give the exam, no matter how hard you study, no matter how many attempts you give, you will ultimately find yourself that you only know about 60% of the exam and 40% is relatively new to you. And that's precisely why you have to practice enough mock tests, because you have to get over that fear or that confusion or that feeling of being let down by your own self when you are attempting the final exam, because it will happen. To anybody who has been preparing for n number of years, you will only know 60% of the exam and 40% will be relatively new.
And sir, if in case like whatever current affairs we are writing, and suppose we do mistakes in mocks, so do we have to remember all the answers for all the mocks? Like suppose I am attempting something wrong, so do I have to analyze all?
I already told you that you don't need to evaluate your mock tests.
Okay, okay, thank you, sir.
The next question that we have, sir, is that a student is confused whether to take geography and PSIR as optional subjects. So can you just suggest which should be taken?
I'm sorry. I actually cannot, because I already said that you have to choose a subject in which you are interested. So out of the two, you have to choose which one you are more interested in. And if not, if you're equally interested in both the subjects, then I would really suggest that you need to go back and see the scoring pattern in the past couple of years. I have not been in touch with the scoring pattern in the past couple of years, to be honest. So I don't think I will be able to suggest a particular optional out of the two.
Okay, thank you, sir. Are there any other questions? Okay, next question is that how many questions should we attempt for prelims, and what was your optional subject, and how does it feel to be an officer?
So number of questions that you should attempt is completely upon you. I don't suggest anybody attempting less than 75 questions. That's all. I know my batchmates who have just attempted about 76, 77 and still qualified. I have known people who have to attempt at least 90 plus questions to qualify. I am one of them. I have to attempt 90 plus. Otherwise, I will definitely not clear this exam. So this strategy again is absolutely unique. You will get to know how many questions you have to attempt once you start writing those mock tests seriously, and you will get to understand what works for you and what doesn't. My optional subject was law. And how does it feel to be an officer? It feels great actually. And let me just tell you guys that it is a lot more responsibility than authority, because once you get yourself into the field, the first 6 months are really rosy, because you most of us have not seen that life unless you come from a bureaucratic family. So you will see that it's a lot of attention which you are going to get immediately once you clear this exam, once you go to the field. But after 6 months, it will actually start to feel like a very, very responsible job. And you don't really care about the attention that you're getting after a certain number of months, because you become used to it. And then you really start to feel the pressure of the job, because you ultimately have to prove why you started preparing, why you spent a certain number of years attempting the exam, and you have to do something good sitting on that chair.
Okay, sir. So the next question in the chat box is that which data we have to look more, the static one or the dynamic one for preparing for exam?
Of course, the dynamic one. I mean, but I never used to write any data points in any of my answers. I've never written any data in any of my mains exam. I haven't ever drawn a flow chart or anything in my mains exam. I have never written a point-wise answer in any of my mains exam.
Okay, sir. So Sriranga has this question that how was your interview experience?
I have given 2 interviews. The first interview wasn't very good because I wasn't prepared. To be honest, I wasn't dressed well. I was extremely nervous. The first few questions really didn't work well for me. Then I got even more pressurized, and when it came to questions which I could have answered well, I wasn't able to answer. I wasn't looking into the eyes of the interviewer. I was mostly, thinking a lot, overthinking about what I had done in the previous question, rather than thinking of the question which I was supposed to answer. So the first interview experience was good, but it could have been better. In the second interview, I was much better prepared. I had spent about 2 months in preparing for the interview, so I was very well prepared. I was confident. I was dressed well, and I was able to look into the eye, and I was able to tell the interviewer, if I didn't know a particular question, that I don't know the answer to this question, I will be very happy to go back home and read more on it, and probably that's something which helped me score a bit more in the second interview as compared to the first one. But it's a fantastic experience to give the UPSC interview. Let me just tell you all that.
Okay, so next question is that is there any area we must be good enough to clear the exam?
All.
Okay. The next question is that does the preparation make us strong, or the practice staying strong makes us strong?
Or the
Practice of staying strong?
I think it's both actually, because I mean, you can only practice well if you stay strong, and it really goes well for those aspirants who are writing multiple attempts, who are probably writing their second, third, fourth attempt. And it really is something, if you're able to focus completely on the paper in front of you, if you stay strong enough, and by staying strong, you have practiced enough, and if you're practiced enough, you know that you will be confident enough to attempt the exam and attempt it well to the best of your capabilities. So I think it is a combination of the two. But yes, I think you're even more than practicing, your mental strength really comes in handy at all stages of preparation for this exam, and even while answering the questions.
Okay, so the next question is that is coaching required to clear UPSC?
I don't think so. And the reason is, although I did go for a coaching, but I still feel that it is not required. And the idea is very simple, that coaching only tells you where to start and where to stop. So if you have some other source of some person, some online resource, something which tells you from about a particular subject where you have to start, what all you have to read, and from where you have to read, that is absolutely precisely all that a coaching does. It doesn't go into your minds and start remembering things, so it is preparation is all you have to make that extra effort, you have to make that, do that hard work, you have to prepare for the exam. But ultimately coaching will just tell you probably where to stop, and that is very, very important when you're dealing with a syllabus which is as huge as UPSC civil services.
Okay, sir. Are there any other questions? Please post in the chat box. Okay, so the next question is that can you tell something about your family and how did they play a role in your success?
So while I was preparing, my family had my mom, dad, and my brother and my sister. So we were a family of 5. Now we are more, but they played an extremely important role. My brother was always my guide. He used to guide me through all the stages. What coaching should I go to? Where should I go for my undergrad? What should I do? You know, he's always been more exposed than I was at all stages of the at all stages in my life, and he's really been a guiding light for me through all the technicalities of it. My parents have always been extremely supportive in doing whatever in whatever I wanted to do. They've always understood that I am responsible enough, so they have not burdened me with their expectations at all. They've always understood that I really will be serious enough to make something meaningful out of my life. And the same goes, my sister has always been like a friend to me. I've always considered her more a friend than a sister, and that's how my family has been supportive. Everybody played a different role in my life, but ultimately altogether the family as a whole was an extremely strong supporting system for me, and they helped me get through the pressuring times when I was feeling low, which I think most of us do at different stages in the preparation of the exam, and tide over it and find myself in a good mental state to prepare and write the exam. So
The next question is that is note making essential and how do you do it?
yes, it is essential, and I already told you how to make notes when I was explaining the newspaper reading.
What type of questions are asked in the interview and how to prepare for the interview?
Let me answer the second question first. So how to prepare is basically there is a detailed application form which you have to fill after you clear the mains exam. And while preparing for the interview, you have to go through the entire detailed application form, the DAF as we popularly called it. And every single word, keyword, I might say that the place that you belong to, your name, the school that you have studied in. For example, I studied in Sri Swaminarayan Gurukul, so I was asked a lot of questions about Swaminarayan. So it can be anything, any single word which is written in the detailed application form, and that's how you are supposed to prepare for the interview. And apart from that, you have to go through your background, your graduation subject, or if your optional is different, then your optional also. But primarily, you have to focus mostly on the DEF, and then probably a little bit reading of your background subject if you have lost touch with it, and your optional a little bit. But I'm sure your optional is fine once you have written the main. So focus mainly on the detailed application form and your graduation subject. In my case, the graduation subject was different than my optional subject.
Okay, so the next question is online or distance masters like MBA after UPSC preparation so that there is no career gap.
Uh, to be very honest, unfortunately, in fact, in the last 2 years of COVID, most of the students of the country have gone through online, schooling. but personally, I haven't been a big fan of online teaching or online learning, uh, especially when it comes to aspects like school or undergraduation or even post-graduation for that matter. Because I think college is not just about the books or the syllabus that you have to cover, but it's more about your personality development. And that really happens when you go into the, go to the campus and interact with people and try to learn different things by observing different people and different elements, So yes, it might be a good idea if you feel right about it, but I don't think you should burden yourself too much while preparing for the exam. Like I said, it is not easy to pursue anything at the same time while you're preparing for the exam. I tried to do so. I was enrolled in a master's program in Delhi School of Economics, which itself is a very difficult course when you're talking about economics. Um, but it wasn't easy for me also. So, and it doesn't make a difference once you qualify for the exam. But if you are really worried about whether you will clear or not, then probably you might want to do something like this. Uh, but that's again a personal choice. So I don't think I am the right person to answer this.
Okay, sir. So did you keep any plan B that if not UPSC, then?
I did actually. So my plan B was that I was fortunate enough to score decently well in my undergraduation, and I got admission in Delhi School of Economics on the basis of the marks that I had gotten in the undergraduation in economics honors in Delhi University. So that was my plan B. I hardly used to go to college because I was preparing for UPSC, but I was able to get through the internals and the externals to a large extent. And once I mean, in the last year of my college, I also sat through the placements, and I was fortunate to get 2 placement offers. So that was my plan B. But yeah, and having a plan B is not bad because it gives you the confidence that you have something to fall back on. So that is precisely why you have to take your college seriously and your school seriously. And doing an open source school and college is not a good idea.
Okay, the next question is that how is cadre allotted, on the marks basis or on the vacancy?
I think that's a question which most of you should not be bothered about at this stage. That is a mistake which most of us do. We start thinking too much ahead of ourselves. But even then, cadre is allotted on the basis of a combination of your own choice, your rank, the reservation criteria, and a criteria of whether you are an insider or an outsider to a state.
Okay, sir. Are there any other questions? Then please post in the chat box. Okay, the next question is that does language matter in the interview?
I don't think so. It matters, especially in interview, because interviewers generally are kind enough to understand that the language doesn't matter when you go to the field. But it will be a better strategy to at least try to understand English, even if you're not able to be very, even if you're not very fluent in speaking it.
Okay, sir. So the next question is what new things did you get to learn from your preparation?
A lot of new things, actually. I think I was extremely naive before I started preparing for this exam. Just while, I mean, all through these 4 years of preparation, and then I think it's been about 3 years of being into the service, I find myself extremely a changed person just because of the kind of exposure that I've been fortunate enough to kind of get in my life. And that is precisely why I'm telling you that this preparation will equip you to uh, be smart enough to kind of uh, avail a lot of other opportunities, even if UPSC doesn't happen for you.
Okay, thank you, sir. Any other questions? Anyone? As UPSC paper is getting variant year by year, how to prepare CSAT, CSAT?
Generally, the syllabus of CSAT says that it is class 10th level maths, decision making, English, and comprehension. So if you have done your 10th well, you should be in safe hands. If you are a little bit underconfident about mathematics or English, then you should practice, I think, at least 2 to 3 tests before you go into the exam, and then you'll be fine. It is not a very difficult paper. It is only because we tend to take it lightly, just because it is not evaluated. It is not counted in the qualifying stage of the exam, in qualifying for the exam. So that is precisely why a lot of people find themselves in a difficult spot. But if you practice about a couple of tests, you'll be absolutely fine.
Okay, so the next question is about the answer writing. I think Abhinav wants to ask about the format, I believe, about the answer writing.
There is no standard format again. There are different people who use different strategies. A batchmate of mine only used to write in points. I have never written in points. I have always believed in paragraphs. There are people who believe in diagrams and flowcharts. I have never done that. So again, like I said, it doesn't matter which strategy you use for a particular question or a particular paper in the exam. The idea is that you should be able to tell the story which you have in your mind to the examiner, whether it is in paragraphs or points, it doesn't really matter. And I'm being extremely honest about it. If you're able to tell your story, if the examiner feels like he's reading a story which is congruent enough, then he will or she will be very, very happy to give you good marks at the end of the question. And that's how you should sort of do answer writing. Just one more thing, that it is always a good idea to begin the answer to a particular question with an introduction and end with a conclusion. However short it might be, but it will always add probably a few points to your overall score in the exam.
Okay, got it, sir. So I think we are done with all these, and I would like to thank the audience for being interactive throughout, and a special thanks to Shubham sir for sparing time from his busy schedule and being here with us, also for addressing all the doubts and the questions that the students had. So thank you so much for being here, sir.
Thank you so much, Janvi. All the best.
Thank you, sir.